Hi, welcome back to another video. We're going to talk about speciation today, and so I brought along one of my favorite species, which is the mantis shrimp. Some of you may know that the peacock mantis shrimp is one of my favorite animals of all time, and a very amazing, uh, just crazy interesting species. And so maybe I'll do a video just about mantis shrimps. What do you think? Okay. Um, so let's get into speciation today. So, how do new species get formed? What's up with that? Well, first you have to have variation. Well, how do variations form? They form via mutations. So remember that there are positive mutations, there are neutral mutations, and there are negative mutations. And so positive mutations benefit survival directly. Okay, so those are happy. The ones that help you survive. Ooh, that doesn't look happy. Let's make it happy. Happy. Okay, so those benefit survival directly. So those are positive. The ones that do not benefit survival directly and actually hurt you, those are negative. And then ones that don't really do anything at all, those are neutral. So what's an example of a neutral mutation? One might ask. And that would be something like dimples. Dimples do not benefit survival directly, nor do they create a situation where you would have to, um, where they would hinder your survival. They're just dimples. They don't really do much of anything. You're falling. All right, so let's get into it then. Oh, here we go. Just to make a note here, giraffes, a lot of people don't know that giraffes had short necks, medium length necks, and long necks. And oh, there you go. And so, people just don't understand that. And so there are fossils of giraffes with short necks. And yes, it does look incredibly awkward. It looks a bit like a really awkward horse. And then there are giraffes with what's considered average or medium necks, and then giraffes with long necks. And that's kind of a lecture for another time. But just to let you know that giraffes do vary in neck length, not as much as they used to. So why would that be? All right. Another topic is genetic recombination, and this is done through sexual reproduction. It basically makes you a giant mutt, and the more of a mutt you are, the healthier you will be usually, because the greater variation in diseases that you can mask and not have, and the healthier that you can kind of be that way. The more isolated breeding that occurs, especially we've seen in animals, the more diseases tend to get really concentrated in a population and the worse off they are. So, the fact that you're not a clone of either of your parents is a very good thing for lots of reasons. All right, here we go. Speciation. So, how does this work? How do you make a new species? Well, first, you geographically isolate them. So, let's see if I can do. Okay, so we'll have species A and we'll have species B, if it'll ever write. B. Okay. And then we're going to jump back up here and we are going to say hello. I just want to change colors. All right. So we're going to go back over here and we're going to be like, hey, look at all this land. Look at all of it. There's so much land. And and we're going to say, oh, species A and species B were once one species. And we know this because look at all this land that they can breed and blah, 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 blah. What could ever happen to go bad? Dun, dun, dun. Let's say a giant flood. A giant flood happens. Oh no. So we go back over here and we're like, oh, river. And we're like, oh, that's a huge river. And these organisms are really, really small. What will ever happen? Well, what will happen is that the organisms cannot cross the river. And so A has to stay over there and B has to stay over there. And so then what? Well, okay, we've accomplished geographic isolation, and this can be due to flood, lava flow, over time, mountain uplifting, tectonic plates and such. There are so many different things that could cause this. Desertification, where a desert forms. Lots and lots can occur to isolate something geographically. Reproductive isolation. So now that we are geographically isolated, what's going to happen is this critter A, species A here, that is currently the same as species B. They're going to start changing. And that could be anything from breeding season, like what time they want to breed, to the rituals for breeding or what they're looking for in a mate. And so let's say that this organism has to sing a song in order to attract a mate. Um, well, the girls pick the mates in birds and things of that nature. And so let's say that bird over here is singing this song, and this female bird is like, I really don't like the same song that some of the other female birds do across the area. So I'm going to say no, thank you. And then a different male bird sings a slightly different song, and that female's like, yeah, okay, I'll mate with you because I prefer that tune that you're singing as opposed to the regular one. And so eventually, over time, if enough females in the population do this, then that leads to reproductive isolation because those females will only mate with the males that are singing the correct song. Same thing for B. Maybe B sticks with the traditional song or a dance or whatever it is. And so if this river ever dried up and they were to ever meet again, generations down the line, they probably would be reproductively isolated because they would not be attracted to the same songs or the same dances. Sometimes this can even, change different things about mating other than just seasons. And it's really interesting. Okay, so now that we're geographically isolated, we're reproductively isolated. Over time, this will form a new species, and this will become its own thing. And species B, it will become its own thing. And that's how things diverge, if you will. All right, so let's just keep on going. Here's an example of geographic isolation. So we've got the northern spotted owl on the coast, and we've got the Mexican spotted owl down here. Now, what could be in between here and here? Like, what is it? There's nothing, shown on the map. What do you think it could be? It's a desert. So in here, it's hot. It's a desert. There's not a lot of fresh water for these birds to come find. And so this is a long flight. Also, there are lots of mountains and things that they have to cross sometimes to try to get to one another. And so eventually these become isolated. Even though birds can fly, you think, okay, well, they can cross rivers, they can cross lots of things. Some of them can cross mountains. Sometimes when there's not enough fresh water, that's another isolating event. Reproductive isolation. This is a great example. And so you've got the horse. Fiddle. Here we go. It's going to play along a little bit. Okay, so you've got the horse. Maybe not. Nope, not going to play along. There we go. There we go. So you've got the horse and then you've got the donkey, right? Horse plus donkey. Sometimes it'll write with me, sometimes it won't, and that's okay. We all know how that feels. Now, what is a horse plus a donkey? Well, it gives you a mule. A mule is not a horse, and the mule is not a donkey. It is what is called a hybrid. So a hybrid. We'll see if it'll write this time. Probably not. Okay. So it's got a hybrid, and that hybrid cannot have babies of its own. It is born sterile. And so there are no, mule to mule babies. You cannot mate two mules with one another. They are born infertile regardless of gender. So in order to get a mule, you have to mate a horse and a donkey every time. And so they are reproductively isolated, even though they're very similar as organisms. Okay, so when we do this, we've got what's called divergent evolution. And what divergent evolution means is that you start with a common ancestor and then things diverge. And so this divergent evolution happens in a radial pattern, radius or radial, right? Kind of meaning around like a sun. And so these are the divergent evolution examples of marsupials in Australia. And it's really, really neat to think that each of these things is a marsupial, which is sort of a subgroup of mammals. And some of these things are extinct, like the Tasmanian wolf, I believe, has been hunted to extinction by man. But anyway, some of these are really, really neat. And so it's interesting to think that they all came from a common marsupial body plan. in that nature has selected these traits in such a way that they have adapted differently in divergent evolution. Here's another example. You can study that. It's the Galapagos finch. And so we have this, this great, 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 great grandparent finch down here. And then based off of which island each of these finches lives on and what food is available, they've diverged themselves. Now, let me skip this for example, or for a second to go to convergence. So here's the opposite. What's the opposite of divergent evolution? That is convergent evolution. And that means when things look like they come together. Now, do they actually come together? No, they don't. It just looks like they do. And so the shark's body plan, the ichthyosaur, and the dolphin body plan all look very, very similar, but they are not similar animals, as the shark is a fish, the ichthyosaur is an extinct reptile, and the dolphin is a mammal, just like you are a mammal listening to this right now. And so they converge in body plan, meaning that they look like they would be related, but they are not. And so this is one area of science that has really advanced thanks to the Human Genome Project, because even though you would assume these things are related, they in fact are not related. And so anyway, there's that. And then of course, let's see here. Divergent evolution. Here's yet again another example based on that pentadactyl limb. All right, so that's all I have on this video. Thank you for coming and hanging out with me. And the mantis shrimp, I will see you soon.